Hey, welcome back, everybody. 3 more sessions to go, and we jump into our happy hour. And I want to just jump right in here for our next fireside and our second last fireside for today. I want to bring on Lisa from Aztec. She's the COO of Aztec Labs, and we're going to cover a lot of things around how to scale a company in our ecosystem. So please give Lisa a big round of applause. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I am excited for this chat. I feel like we've chatted about a bunch of things without somebody recording this, so this should be fun. I guess maybe the setting here that I'd love to learn about you and have the audience know is what made you actually go from the investing side to being an operator and joining a company?
Yeah. So on the investing side, you actually get to see a lot of everything. And so back in 2017, I was in New York and I met this startup called Consensus. And it had a bunch of startups coming out of it. And so I actually originally learned about crypto through my role as an investor. And I met people that were building all kinds of decentralized things. Everything was going to be decentralized. And I just remember thinking at the time, like, all right, these people have white papers. There's a lot that still needs to be built. I don't feel like, while it's really exciting, this is the right time for me with my skill set to jump in, because it feels like they need people to actually build this stuff first. And so I always kept an eye on the crypto space generally. And in 2020, when there was just a lot of excitement around DeFi, around institutional adoption, Bitcoin being purchased by companies to put on in their balance sheets, like it seemed like a more appropriate time because the tech had actually been built. There were people actually using this stuff. Obviously, 2021, there was like a frenzy, but I still saw the same problems that I saw when I was originally using the very primitive products in 2017 around scalability and privacy. And so when I was thinking about, okay, I want to come into this space, but I feel like in order for the space to really blossom, I want to be part of something that's going to move the space forward. That was kind of that was what I was focused on. And so when I met the Aztec team, they were ambitiously tackling both of those really key problems. And actually, you were part of my decision-making process to join the team.
I remember doing that reference call.
Yeah. And so I think I met the team. We clicked right away. The vision was clear. It was obviously a need in the space. And the team had obviously the right technical chops and we're building a world-class technical team, but they needed someone to do all the other stuff. And so I was really excited to join them as kind of the first non-technical person back in 21.
It's kind of funny that once you kind of pointed out, it feels more odd than it should be, but you did join Aztec a few years after they were working on the product, and you are still the first non-technical person to help with kind of scaling up the company. I guess what was that period like? What did you end up doing just kind of the first couple of months in, and what were your kind of first impressions of working with an all engineering only team?
Yeah. I mean, everything needed to be done, right? So I came in and I remember after my first week, I was talking to one of my friends and it was like, yeah, this week I set up our CRM. I set up I had a bunch of partnership calls. I set up our recruiting process. Like it was just the scope of things was just everything. Cause you just you don't want to have the cryptographers and engineers spending time on that stuff. It doesn't make sense. It's not their skill set. And so there was a lot of room to grow. And I quickly realized that, we were building a product that we wanted people to use. One of the things that, you need to do is tell people about it. And obviously I didn't have the capacity to do it at the way that it needed to be done properly. And so in the early days, I was just kind of like looking for these critical gaps and being like, okay, well, how do we fill that gap? And so a couple of months after I joined, I got one of my friends who was really good at marketing and growth hacking and Twitter to join to basically make sure that we were able to get the word out. And so I think, it's just like being able to context switch really quickly, which I admire. One of our founders does that better than anyone I've ever met. But being able to wear a lot of different hats and be flexible kind of in what you need to do and what the role looks like. And then over time, finding people that are way better than you at the critical things that the company needs and getting them to take it to the next level.
One of the things that I'm particularly excited about in this chat is that You don't often kind of get to have a conversation around scaling up a company from a non-CEO
Mm,
or CTO standpoint, especially in our space where things are so much tech heavy.
mm.
So I'm kind of curious to understand, like, what does it mean to be a CEO now of Aztec, and if you can walk us through like the last couple of years where you've kind of gone beyond more than 20 employees, and things that you had to do to set up, or things that you had to learn the easy or the hard way, and just kind of what that process has been in setting up an org that's
Yeah.
more than just kind of being a startup.
Yeah, I'd say it happened kind of organically. So when I first came on, I was coming from an investing world, and so they were like, what do we do with you? Like, we don't really know what exactly your role is going to be. So I came in as head of BD, and I was doing a bunch of the partnerships that for our first kind of product that had private DeFi. So I was working with a bunch of DeFi protocols on integrations. But just by virtue of like being at the organization and seeing other needs, I obviously like filled other gaps. So in a day, I might be like doing financial models and working on figuring out our recruiting pipeline for the engineering side because we needed more engineers, or doing partnerships. And it actually wasn't until a year later that I was about to head out on my first maternity leave that they were like, well, well, who's going to do all these different roles? Like, we need someone to kind of make sure that we have all these things covered. So that was a nice forcing function in my case. I'd say like maybe others could have done it a little bit earlier, but it was a good forcing function, and it was actually good timing. I think given when I joined, we just closed our Series A. I just like wanted to be a good steward of the money, right? And like make sure that we weren't over hiring or like growing too quickly. And so it was fine to like wear the hats that I needed to wear at that time. But then you get to a point where like that's not the best thing for the company anymore. And you do need to have someone that can like take it to the next level. So I'd say, yeah, in my case, it happened more organically, but I think like looking kind of ahead, you just want to make sure that you have what you need in order for people to do their jobs. That's kind of like ultimately what the CEO is responsible for, whether that's resources in terms of tools or people. It's thinking about like making sure that people have the context to understand like how their roles fit into what the company's goals are, making sure that people know what the company is working towards and like how we're progressing towards those goals. So I'd say like now it's like shifted over time to kind of managing a team and making sure that they have what they need to do their jobs, but then also doing that for the company to the best of my ability, whether it's through company-wide processes or through the department heads that are managing those teams.
How often were you in a scenario where you had to figure something out because the problem was unique to Aztec versus things you can kind of look up, whether it's from friends or just general kind of advice that you can get on the internet on this is what you should do when you're a 100-person company or 50-person company or 200-person company? Were there any
Mm.
kind of moments where it was like not clear um, that this is kind of how you should set up anyone from process to just solve a problem that's very unique to you?
Yeah, ChatGPT didn't exist my first couple of years, so I'd say it's been a pretty big, like a step function difference since that's been invented. But yeah, back in the day, I think like I would use resources from like startups in general. There are tons of resources out there, whether it's like you don't want to build these things from scratch, especially given what I was saying, you're spending time on so many different things. Like, why not leverage the things that are publicly available? But in addition to that, I think there's also a lot of like really helpful peer groups like within the industry that can give you like industry specific information and kind of be a sounding board when you're trying to figure something out. So I think the combination of like publicly available resources, just groups with other people that are doing similar roles to you, and then now ChatGPT are probably the best. And then also in addition to that, we have like world-class investors on our cap table and like thankfully have very good relationships with them. So they've seen it work across dozens of companies and kind of can be a sounding board as well. So it's a combination between like network resources. And then at the end of the day, like it's not a one size fits all. You need to like have things that are true to the process and the values and the kind of what the founders want. And so I'd say like everything was adapted and like made purpose for our organization. So even if we got something off the shelf, it wasn't like we took it as it was. We needed to make sure that it was like consistent with how we wanted to build a company.
Yep, that makes total sense. What was Aztec back then when you joined, and how would you describe Aztec and what they're building now?
Oh my gosh. So when I joined, yeah, it was like the founders are now CTO, who wasn't the CTO at the time, a couple of other engineers and cryptographers. And I just remember like it was very research oriented. Like the company started in 2017 with a completely different kind of objective. It was bringing corporate debt on chain, which obviously like still
8 years a bit early.
yeah, a little early. But in that process, realize, oh, like all these people we're talking to don't want to come on chain until there's privacy. Maybe someone should build that. And at the time, I think Zcash was talking about, extending to
It had just
Ethereum.
come out, yeah.
Yeah. And so we're still waiting for it. I mean, obviously, there's like all kinds of great efforts now, but not a fully programmable kind of layer on top of Ethereum, which is what we're building. And so I think that at the time it was like very much more academic because it was like, the people that were attracted to the company at the time were like doing the cutting edge research needed to now implement this solution. And so lots of like cryptographers, I remember joining, it's 7 people, so it wasn't that many, but I remember joining like cryptography lunch and learns and just being like, you lost me after Alice and Bob. I like genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. But I found that a little bit intimidating at first because I was like, I should understand this. It's critical to what we're building. But then I was like, but wait, these brilliant minds are spending time thinking about it, and that's what they should be spending time on. And I need to spend time on all these other things. So I like quickly got over that. I think initially I was like, oh, I should learn it. And now I'm like, nope, I can't. Like there's like only so much that you can do. And I think everyone has unique things to bring to the table, and you should just like swim in your lane and contribute in the way that's best to your skill set instead of trying to like stretch into areas that like you have no ability to contribute.
I think that's generally a good advice, especially when you're figuring out things at the earlier stages. The thing that I kind of like about Aztec is that it's kind of uniquely set up to effectively do a lot of cryptography research. It's not just kind of taking things out of the shelf. They've had to invent so many things over the last 6 years. And that kind of sets up a very interesting org setup where you have a pretty big R&D and just pure research department, and then you have another subset of people that are implementing things and making a product. Was this always the case, or did this kind of become more common as you kind of scaled up on the team? And overall, I guess like what has been challenging or a breeze in setting up an org that has such a big emphasis on research?
Yeah. I'd say the proportion has definitely shifted where now we have way more engineers proportionally just because you need to build all the things that we're building. Like Aztec is building a decentralized L2 with a decentralized sequencer at launch. We're building an AVM, we're building the client-side proving and the cryptography that goes along with that. We're building a language and all of the tooling that goes along with that. So like you just need engineers to build that stuff. And so we definitely still have a strong like research kind of like heritage, I guess, and like history. And I think a lot of the people that came to the company came because of that. And they were just like, even if they weren't cryptographers, they wanted to learn that and they were like intrigued by it and curious. But I think that, yeah, over time, definitely got to pull from different companies and places where people had experience like launching products and being in a more like structured organization. So the people that were attracted to Aztec in the like very early days are probably pretty different in terms of like their risk appetite and what they want to spend time on to the people that join today, because we're just like much closer to launching than we were when I originally joined. So like I think the people that join now are like very excited about the next part of the journey, which is basically like building an ecosystem around the technology
Right,
that
which
we
is a
built.
whole different goal than just existing first,
Right.
and then you get to scale things up. Um, Aztec has been very kind of vocal, adamant, and just a massive pioneer in supporting decentralization. I guess I'm curious for at least the audience to know, like, how do you think about decentralization as Aztec, and what does it mean, and kind of what values are kind of considered to be on the strong side of this is considered decentralized?
Yeah. So I think, technically ZK Money, what we launched in 2021, is the first stage 2 roll up according to LTV, which is cool. But yeah, in terms of,
I just it makes sense. I just realized this.
yeah.
This adds up. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I think decentralization has just always been part of the kind of like vision of this fully programmable L2. We did build a centralized product. ZK Money was a centralized product when we had it live, which allowed people to do private payments, private DeFi, but it was like a centralized solution. And so part of the rationale for why we sunset that was because we were like, okay, well, do we want to decentralize this thing, or do we want to build towards our full vision of a fully programmable L2? And what we realized is it's actually really hard to fit decentralization into a centralized thing. Like, it just would require a lot more engineering resources than just like having decentralization be part of the whole protocol design at the outset. So I think, we had done it, the centralized approach, we learned from it. And we, for now, like this fully programmable L2 that we're building, like our entire testnet process has basically been to like make it permissionless for validators to join the set, which has been awesome to see just how much appetite there is for that. We have now, I think, 10,000 sequencers that are participating in our adversarial testnet, which is a scale that like just
That's a
doesn't
crazy
exist.
high,
Yeah.
incredible number.
We have 20,000 nodes that are running. Like, I think someone cited that it was like more than Ethereum, like according to some website. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty ridiculous that we're able to like do like kind of run this network at such scale. And so I think it's a partially from like kind of our experience, partially from like the founder's vision, and then also as like a privacy protocol. We just like really want to make sure that we're building it in a way that is a way that developers can kind of trust that there's not someone that can flip the switch on them. We want it to be something that like there isn't any one party that's like directly controlling the network, and that developers like have visibility and transparency into how the network is being governed.
Talk more about the privacy part. So the decentralization makes sense, and the more people you have supporting the network, are the greater kind of your odds of survival, especially on managing the states of just the blockchain data itself. What is Aztec's approach to privacy, and I guess why is that important?
In terms of what we're building, yeah. So this kind of fully programmable L2 that we're building allows developers to have complete control over what's public and what's private. So that's, think about everything that you could build in Ethereum, plus if you could do it privately. That's kind of like one way we like thinking about it. And it basically enables you to do what Aztec set out to do at the very beginning, which is like, okay, if we want to get like enterprises and corporates to come on chain, like they have privacy concerns and considerations and responsibilities, like regulatory responsibilities. And so they will have the ability to kind of build all of the things that they're looking to build on chain, but meet those regulatory obligations. And so I think there's a lot of interest and conversation about privacy right now, because there is a new wave of users and builders that are coming into the ecosystem that like realize that there are real limitations to building if you don't have the ability to decide kind of like what's public and private. And we're doing it in a decentralized way, obviously, like, so there isn't going to be, things that are done off chain to provide the privacy. The way that it's done is users are proving things client side and then setting a proof. And so basically that data doesn't exist anywhere but in the client, on the user's device.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's a very, very kind of important distinction. I preface that by saying I know it's not going to be a fair question to you specifically, but do you have any insight into what the reaction has been for developers when they kind of consider using Noir or just Aztec in general for deploying a contract where they're getting privacy versus kind of convincing them altogether that, hey, privacy is important and you should kind of think about your application to have that as a default versus thinking about it later?
Yeah, I think, well, when people are building with Noir, I think Noir is a programming language, like a universal ZK programming language that developers can use to build on any ecosystem that has a verifier that is compatible with Noir. So you can use it across all the EVM chains, Starknet, and then there's kind of other ecosystems outside of Ethereum where you can deploy apps that have Noir. And so I think what we've realized is like there's a limit to what you can do, because obviously when you're building on a transparent blockchain, like things have to be public just by definition. And so I think, one, it's just there's limitations in terms of what developers are able to do with Noir on other chains, but then also it's like a better developer experience because Aztec is purpose built for Noir. Like it's we have
You get
all
the
these
best of everything, especially on the Aztec network.
Yeah, like there's infrastructure and stuff that you would have to like build if you wanted to build Noir apps on other ecosystems versus with Aztec, it just comes out of the box.
That's simple enough.
Yeah.
Last question to you is, I guess, what can we expect from Aztec of the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. So, like I said, we have our adversarial testnet running right now. it's been very active and very exciting to just see operators kind of permissionlessly adding themselves through an ecosystem project called ZK Passport, which allows you to actually do proof of humanity using your passport, generates a ZK proof, and then it's a good Sybil resistance mechanism. We are using that adversarial testnet in preparation for our ignition launch, which will basically be the deployment of all the contracts onto L1. So that's our governance, staking, basically like all the sequencer kind of related things. And then after that will be the upgrade that adds the execution environment, which we're calling alpha. So that's all in the next, time period that you're talking about,
Very
which is a
soon.
lot to do. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Lisa, thank you so much for this amazing conversation, and can't wait to see how Ignition goes.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Amazing.